Elon Musk yesterday sparked yet another round of controversy by calling Democratic Senator and not-for-nothing Navy combat veteran Mark Kelly a traitor. He did so on X, and it came in response to Kelly's posts on X detailing a recent visit to Ukraine. The senator urged continued American support for Ukraine's fight against Russia. Kelly wrote in part, quote, "What I saw proved to me we can't give up on the Ukrainian people." Senator Kelly is now safely back in Washington, and he joins us exclusively from Capitol Hill this morning. Senator Kelly, thank you very much for being here underneath that famous dome. You're obviously not a traitor, military veteran, flew the space shuttle, flew combat missions over Iraq. So I think the question is, what do you think about your visit to Ukraine triggered or sparked this reaction from Elon Musk?
Well, I think Elon Musk, the president, the White House generally doesn't like anybody who has a different view on policies. This is my third trip to Ukraine. It's important to me to go there to support the Ukrainian people. It's part of my job, but also to figure out what the situation currently is on the ground and how the changes in U.S. policy has affected them in them trying to kick Russia out of their country. Russia violently attacked Ukrainians, murdering women and children. I met a couple nurses at a hospital just a few days ago outside of Kyiv, a veterans hospital, and they were named Tatiana and Irina, and they just told me this horrific story about how they were they saw kids in their neighborhood just brutalized and then murdered in front of their parents.
Yeah.
And, Elon, I don't really, take him seriously. He's not a serious guy. And he is, he's been slashing and burning the federal government at the expense of, folks that are just trying to get by and live their lives. And many of those are veterans.
But, Senator, let's get back to Ukraine, I think, because there is this key question. Negotiations are happening today about a framework for peace there after 3 years of bloody conflict. You touched on some of it. What do you think, as a veteran, as a senator, should be in that framework for peace?
Well, first of all, I'd like to see this thing come to an end as much as anybody, as much as the Ukrainians. They do not want to be at war. But it's got to end in a way that respects their sovereignty, where they get some of their territory back. And what this president did a couple weeks ago, ahead of the negotiation, I mean, he talks about he's a great deal maker, the art of the deal. And before the negotiation started, he gave away NATO membership and he gave away Ukrainian territory. And he didn't have the Ukrainians at the table. And then he tried to negotiate this with President Zelensky in front of cameras. That was a historic mistake. I think that's going to go down in history as one of the dumber things a president has ever done.
Senator.
So now they're in Saudi Arabia, and I think we've got to get to a negotiated settlement. The Russians are not going to want to give anything up.
Yep.
But go ahead, Tony.
Well, I was going to jump in because you said something I think that's important. You said Ukraine needs to get some of their territory back. Russia controls about 20% of the country right now. How much do they need to get back?
Well, ideally, I'd like to see them get all of it back and get the Russians kicked out of their country. And one day, I hope to see Putin rotting in a prison cell somewhere. I think that's a possibility. He is a criminal. He is intentionally targeting children's hospitals and schools to kill little kids. I mean, this guy's one of the worst guys on the planet, and Donald Trump looks at him as somehow like he's his buddy. I don't get it. It is not good for us and our national security. It makes us look weak, and we are less safe because of it.
So, I mean, this is really key, though. Marco Rubio says the Ukrainians should be willing to give up some land for peace. Do you agree with him?
Well, we're going to have to see how this negotiation goes. This needs to come to an end. They don't want to fight this thing continuously. I met with veterans there, too, in a veterans hospital. Multiple soldiers with multiple amputations. Guys that, once they get out of the hospital, they're going to go back and fight. Not all of them, but several of them. I met this guy named Anton, who was missing an arm, a hand, a leg. I asked him what he thought about the change in U.S. policy, Trump's policy, and he said, well, I can't say it on I could say it on cable news. He said, "What the?" I'll leave the last word
Wow.
out. And that's their attitude about what has happened here in the United States. They don't get it. We're their friend and ally, and now this president is turning our backs on them. And it seems to me he's sort of switching sides in this conflict. I hope Marco Rubio can get a good deal. I want to see this thing come to an end. But we should have never put ourselves in a position of negotiating from a place of weakness. And that's what Donald Trump did.
All right, Senator, we'll have to leave it there, but we'll see how these negotiations go, and we'll keep talking about it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Tony.